Hi, John here again, and in this video I would like to show you how I learn from orchestral scores or orchestral music. And this is an ever ongoing process, so if you would ask me in a year or so, I would probably do it differently. And it's a highly personal thing as well, but I can at least show you what I do and what I found helpful. Okay, so the first step is to choose a short section of an orchestral piece that you're interested in, and I would recommend that you limit this to pieces that you have the score for, because there's so much. Even if you have great ears and you're used to transcribing, and I really think you should transcribe daily, there's a lot of stuff that can be really hard to hear, even if you're experienced. Certain doublings that you might not hear when you try to transcribe it, but if you don't include the doublings, it won't sound the same. So it's almost more like a feeling with certain doublings. It might be really hard to hear it if you don't know that it's there. It can be hard to discover it. And so I'd really recommend that you have the scores, because after a while you'll pick up on the most common doublings. But and you can find the scores at imslp.org in the most cases, if it's not really recent music. So the piece I thought I would like to look at today is let's see here. There it is. So it's the beginning of Symphony number 1 by Tchaikovsky, and I chose this piece because I like the sound of it, and I hadn't looked at it before, and it's pretty simple as well, so it's easier to explain it. And also there's not that big of I mean, the texture is not that big, so you don't have a ton of instruments going at the same time, so it's easier to get an overview here in this video. So you can do this in two ways. You can either with score in hand just start transcribing as well as you can, and I would recommend that, and then check your work after a few bars. So and then you can see where you went wrong and correct yourself, or congratulate yourself for being right. So or the second option is just to copy the score. Look at the score and then write it down, or notate it in Sibelius like I did here, or by hand, or however you want to do it. And this, you actually learn stuff from this as well, and from what I've read, that's sort of a process that a lot of the composers used to do, from Bach and Haydn and all those guys did this. They copied scores by hand because naturally they didn't have a copier back then. So and also I'm sure they did dictation, but I think it's probably, since they didn't have recordings back then, you couldn't really work on transcribing like you can do today. So I think this it's a good way to learn as well. As long as you don't mechanically copy it, you really want to hear what you're writing down. So either way, you can do a mixture of both, or whatever you feel like. Maybe try changing them up and see what seems to give you the best results. Okay, so I've copied this score into Sibelius here, and okay, this view is kind of weird, so it'll be hard to see. Let's see here. That's better. Okay, so we have not that much going on actually, but we'll have a listen first. And the playback here is just Note Performer from Wallander Instruments, and it's a great software to use with Sibelius. I think it might work with Finale as well. I'm not sure, but it's not as good as if you would do a mock-up with really great samples, but for the price and also for the ease of use and speed, it's the best. So let's listen to it here. Okay, so that's the section we're gonna look at, and it's I mean, this is 24 bars, and in most cases that would be too much. I recommend that you start with maybe 4 bars or 8 bars, or it also depends on the, like I said, the texture of the music. So, and here we got at the most. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we have like 4 sections playing at the same time at the most. So that it's kind of, it's when it's kind of simple like this, you can focus on a bit longer section. But if it's like a really dense piece of music where the whole orchestra is involved, it's easier to... I mean, I've analyzed down to even 1 bar of music. And also it depends on what you're after. If it's just an orchestral effect, maybe a short run or whatever, it might not be more than 1 bar. So... but if it's a big section and that you really love, I would chop it up in maybe half, or depending on how long it is. But I try to keep the section manageable. So it's more about being able to focus on whatever you're trying to learn without feeling overwhelmed. So let's see. So we got... what I liked about this and why I wanted to learn from it was that I really liked this sort of bubbling accompaniment. And what we have here is you got a tremolo in the violin 1 and 2, and so you can see here they're playing, the violin 1 play B flat to G, or we're in G minor, so there would be May, Do in solfege, and violin 2 are playing Do, May instead. So if you look at it here, you have May is ringing, or the B flat, and Do is ringing, which is the G. And here we have the same thing. The only difference is that it's the violin 2 have the B flat and violin 1 have the G. So what you got is actually G and B flat ringing all the time, but instead of having it like let's say if I guess we do this. So instead of having this, which is very static, and let's say this wasn't the strings, it would be kind of boring, and you wouldn't have that movement that's really cool in this piece. I mean, I wouldn't do this everywhere, of course, but for as an accompaniment, like for a light melody like this, it really works well. So, and actually, whenever you have longer held notes in chords, you can use this technique, because if you want some more energy and something more interesting happening in the background. So, and here with the with the samples, it sounds a bit too perfect. In reality, if you listen to a recording of this, you'll hear that it's a bit more muddled, because you got I don't know, 16 violins here and maybe 14 here, and they won't play exactly in sync. But it's a really cool sound. And so we got 4 bars of this, and when you just start listening to this, since this is the first thing you hear, that's sort of like the main thing in your ear. And then we got the melody coming in here in bar 5, I mean. And I really like this combination. You got a flute and solo here, and you got a bassoon solo. So 1 flute and 1 bassoon. And the cool thing is that the flute is playing in its best register here, which is from, according to orchestration text, it's the strongest register for the flute is from G above the staff to 1 octave higher than that. So it's totally within the best register here. And the bassoon here doubles it. A bassoon wouldn't be able to double this an octave higher, because it would be out of range and it would sound really weak and forced if it tried. So it's doubled 2 octaves below, and I really like this sound. So and also another thing that's kind of different with this, at least for me, was that you have the accompaniment. I mean, it's very common that you have the accompaniment below the melody. In this case, you have it in the middle, because you have the strings are playing here around G4, and you get the bassoon 1 octave below. Well, actually not 1 octave below, but it's below the strings, and you have the flute an octave above. So the melody sort of encapsulates the accompaniment, and it's a great sound in my opinion, and also a really clear sound. So it's an ideal way to introduce a melody for the first time. And well, it's the very first melody of Tchaikovsky's very first symphony, so he did a good job here, I think. And let's see here. Oh yeah, about the notation. Let's see. You can see here, this is actually the same thing as this, but notated in separate 16ths. It would be really annoying to read G, B flat, B flat, G, B flat, G over and over again for 8 bars. So this is sort of a shortcut for that. But also here, why it goes to the regular notation is because it changes the pattern. And even though you could notate this in this fashion, it's easier to see the change like this, and you'll be able to notice much easier that something has changed when you're sight reading this stuff. So it's good for the players, and it's a very clear notation. And here you see you go back to the regular one, and then you have same thing here again, same thing again, and then also we got B flat G and then A G, but the difference here, and that's the same as here, but the difference here is it keeps going for the whole bar, so no need to change that. Okay, so orchestrationally is not really that much going on, but what's going on is really cool, so that's really all you need. You don't need to have super complex orchestration, especially not in the beginning of a piece. You want to keep it clear, and I think this is a great example of keeping everything clear and still interesting. What else? Yeah, I really like the phrasing here of the melody as well. It's something that I haven't really done before myself. That you have this phrase first, and then you have a shorter phrase, these 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, but well, actually 5, you can look at it as this cell here, and then you repeat that again, and the second time you repeat it, the second time you repeat the melody, you have a shorter break, so let's just listen to it. Yeah, so he first states the melody here, and then he does it again, but when he does it the third time, he doesn't wait as long. You see here you have a half note tied to an eighth, and here he repeats it almost immediately, so it's on an 8th note rests here. Well, the rest the melody is holding. So what it does is that your it sort of builds the energy, because if you would just have repeated the same thing again, it would have been okay, but it would have been much less exciting, and it wouldn't build as much to the next section. You sort of understand here that something is coming. So if you listen to that again, I think you'll know what I mean without my mumbling. Okay, here we go. Okay, so and then it leads into this part here, the last part of the melody, where you have you can, if you look at the intervals and the relation to the rhythm, you can see here where it's the melody slows down, where you have quarter notes here, you get a larger leap as well. And if you look at the beginning here, where you have 8 notes and 16th notes, it's mainly scalar movement. So no large leaps compared to this section here. And you see that a lot, actually, because and I mean, that's also it can sound kind of weird to have a ton of large leaps going by really fast. It can be really cool as well, but it's more common to keep the larger leaps when there's longer notes involved. So, but anyway, I like this melody because it's and more than the melody, I like the phrase structure, that you have a longer statement and then you have a really short fragment here that you repeat, and the way it repeats, like I said, with the rhythm, that it keeps getting smaller, so to speak. Well, compressed is probably a better word. And then finally, this last thing that sort of ties it all together. So I think we should just maybe listen to that again up until that point. So here we go. Okay, so after that you have a sort of a run here up until the next section, and the next section, the accompaniment moves up an octave. So it's the same idea, exactly the same notes, but 1 octave higher. And this works great with strings, so there's no problem there with the ranges. And the woodwinds rest, and we have the violas playing the melody instead. And also here we got the bass coming in. We got the double bass and the cellos in octaves, which is really common as well. And they're just coming in here. So this is a cadence, so we got 5-1 here. And the run here, or I don't know if it's really a run, but the sort of the bridge between the two sections. One thing that you can notice is that as soon as the melody stops, this takes over the main interest. So instead of maybe holding this and jumping up 1 octave, you get an added interest by that the accompaniment sort of takes over the main focus, which is a good thing to incorporate in your music, I feel, because it's very common that the music sort of dies when the melody rests, but it's a really cool thing to, instead of maybe using a fill in some other part of the orchestra, that you use what you already have going, and also its secondary function here is to lead the strings up 1 octave, and it just goes up with a melodic minor scale. So you get G, A, B flat, C, D, E, which is the natural 6th, and the leading tone, natural 7, and it leads into the G here. And this is the same thing, but starting, it's just a third above, so just a regular harmony to the line. And the only curious thing here is that instead of you see you have a B flat, C, C sharp, which is the sharp 4 or flat 5 depending on how you look at it, and then going into D, E, F sharp, G, A, and up to B flat. So, and I think the reason he uses the passing tone here is because he needed to have 8 notes, and if he would just do a straight G melodic minor scale, he would only have 7 notes. So I think that's the main reason why we have this here, and it sounds cool as well. So it's and it works great. So it's a good choice. I feel it gets it a bit more interesting as well, instead of just a straight scale up. And yeah, and like I said, it's only thirds. So you have the G, B flat, A, C, the minor third. Then you get repeat A here, and then you get the C sharp, which is the major third. So still thirds. B flat, D, C, E, D, F sharp, E, G, and finally F sharp and A, and then up to G and B flat. So if we listen to just this section here, so that's where it works great. But also the pits basses that comes in here also helps reinforce that it's a cadence, and also that we're sort of starting on a new section here. Well, at least a continuation of the previous one. So something new is happening. So if we wouldn't have the basses here, it would still work, but it wouldn't have the same effect. So listen to this. Okay, and compare that to so it's much clearer, and it gives a more I don't know if I would call it depth, but it gives a more sort of a stable feel when it comes in here. So and then we have the same, like I said, the same accompaniment, just an octave higher, and but the melody doesn't start. It doesn't wait 4 bars again. It actually just starts in the second bar. So you get sort of one bar of breathing room here, just to sort of cement that, okay, now we're up here instead. And again, it's more common to have the melody higher than the accompaniment, but in this case we actually have the accompaniment higher than the melody. And listen to just this section. Okay, so we have the violas playing here, and it's the same melody as we had here, and it's actually exactly the same octave as the bassoon we're playing. And nothing new happens in the strings here, but in the flute we got an extra flute here, so we have a fill in the flutes in octaves. So, and you can see here in every good composition, the fill doesn't start until the melody rests. So you see, it lands on the G here, and then on the upbeat, the fill take over. So we can listen to that. And I don't know if this was part of his plan or anything, but you get the sharp 4 or flat 5 here again. And yeah, and that's as far as I took it for this section. So what I usually do, like I said, is that I copy everything into the full score, and now we're not in the full score, we're looking at the more condensed view, but in the full score looks like this. So you can really see, that's what's cool about looking at the full score actually, because you can see how much sound there is just by looking at it. You can see here, if I zoom out enough, that it's a pretty it's not that much going on, even, and you see that just by looking at the page. So, and when I work on this stuff, I actually have my regular 27-inch screen, and then I have another 27-inch screen on the side in portrait mode, so I can see a full score page. And so I have the full score page to my left, and then I have the more detailed view on my main screen. So that's I would really recommend that setup. And it wasn't very expensive to buy a second screen either, so it was a very good investment. Saves a ton of time. And also it helps a lot with when I've transcribed whatever section I'm working on, or if I just want to copy it directly from the score. It's really easy to have the score on the second screen while you input the notes in Sibelius or whatever you're working on. So my first step here, I mean, I usually don't analyze anything more specific when it comes to harmony and that stuff in this score view. But the really important step here, I feel, is, I mean, the orchestral stuff, the orchestral analysis when it comes just to the orchestration and the instrumentation, I obviously do that here. And we sort of looked at that when it came to this color here with the flutes and the bassoon and all that stuff. So that's it for the full score, and we'll continue looking at the sketch score or the reduction in the next video.